It is Monday, meaning we're going to be taking a look at the week of Blue Jackets action over the past 7 days since last Monday. Now, normally I talk about the standings last in these videos. However, there has been some movement in the standings that don't exactly work in the Blue Jackets' favor, so we're going to talk about that first in the beginning of the video. So the Jackets have now moved up to 31st in the NHL. They are tied in points with the Sharks for last, but the Jackets have a better win percentage because they've played less games. They're only 1 point behind Chicago and only 3 points behind the Ducks. This has been a catastrophic week for the Blue Jackets tank and their hypothetical draft positioning. I know the lottery can come in and screw everything up and make everything all topsy-turvy and ruin tanks and make teams that finish not really close to the bottom move up. But again, as far as guaranteeing yourself a top 3 pick, the Jackets haven't been doing themselves any favors in regard to that over this past week. I really wasn't worried about this happening in March because I looked at the schedule and the schedule seemed pretty brutal. A lot of road games, a lot of games against playoff competitors. But obviously, they've been winning some games that I thought would have been obvious losses. And this just seems like something that the Jackets have been doing really ever since every time they have an opportunity to really tank and get somebody, get a premium draft pick. Either they go on some win streak at the end of the season that doesn't actually carry momentum in the next season, or sometimes they just fall victim to some bad lottery luck. But anyway, this does seem like a classic Blue Jackets end of the season kind of thing when they've been out of it pretty much since after the first 10 games of the season. So speaking of some of those games that I thought would be obvious losses turning into wins, we're going to start the week with last Tuesday when they played in DC against the Capitals, winning in overtime 7-6. At this point, Pascal Vincent was still acting as head coach. Patrick Laine was still at center and still playing, and it was Tarasov versus Lindgren. As the final score indicates, the defense pretty much optional in this game, and the goaltending was not good enough to make up for it. Ovechkin did get his 40th goal on a goal that really, it went in off of Nick Blankenberg, and we thought it was Strome's goal at first, I believe, but either way, it went off of the last Capital to score that goal was Ovechkin, so he gets his 40th. Whatever. And the Jackets went down 3-0, and it looked like same old until Eric Robinson would get one back before the end of the first period. And the Blue Jackets started to show some more signs of life in the second. The Jackets and the Capitals trading goals back and forth. And another goal for the really suddenly on-fire Blue Jackets power play. They've been pretty highly ranked ever since in the past month or so. They've had one of the better power plays in the league after that abysmal start they had. Again, what a time for this to get going when the results are pretty much meaningless, and it's probably objectively better for your future to just lose every game. Now's the time to start, putting on 7-goal performances and your power play to be league tops, but I guess that's just how it works. Blue Jackets entering the third period still down 2, but they weren't going away as that second period effort showed, and they actually did tie it up in the third thanks to Adam Boqvist's second goal of the game and a laser by Emil Bemstrom, showing what we've seen him do overseas and some of the hype around this guy, why they keep him around, why they're very hesitant to put him on waivers, because he can do stuff like that. Just the consistency of that happening hasn't been there at all. But it looked like they would fall short after giving up a goal to Jensen within the final 5 minutes until Boone Jenner getting a goal with 46 seconds left, Tarasov out of the net and everything to force overtime. And it would be Johnny Gaudreau finding Jack Roslovic on a 2-on-1 for the overtime winner. Now, I know I'm saying these wins without doom and gloom as a tank, but in the game when I'm watching them, I'm having fun watching this because there's something instinctually within me where I cannot stop the dopamine rushes I see from watching the Blue Jackets score a goal, and I know that's objectively bad for their future, but it is fun to watch, and it's fun to beat the Capitals in their building. But again, this is an awful way to keep your tank going. This is an awful way to secure draft positioning, but again, it's a fun watch. I like it. It's good for my eyeballs, maybe not for draft positioning. And then you move on to Friday, back at home against the Islanders, winning again in overtime, 5-4. Brad Larson back behind the bench for this one. Elvis would return to the roster, but would not be starting in this one. It was Hutchinson versus Sorokin in net. Patrick Laine hurting his triceps in practice between the Capitals game and this Islanders game, so he was out. Hunter McCown draws in, and Sean Corrali also returning to the lineup. So they lose one center in Laine, and they get 2 back. So that's good for them there. And after a fast start, it kind of looked like it was going to be a typical Islanders game after the first period. Jackets going down 1-0. But then the Blue Jackets come back and score 4 goals in the second period. The most notable of which being Kent Johnson getting the Michigan. He's tried it a couple times. Finally pulls it off here. He gets the lacrosse Mike leg goal to give the Blue Jackets the league, whatever you want to call it. It's just an awesome way to score, and he does it, and he pulled it off there. But the Islanders did get the better of Columbus in the third period. Brock Nelson's power play goal tying it up to force overtime. By the way, Brock Nelson has just been a force against the Blue Jackets all season. It's been really weird to watch him in all 4 games just dominate this roster. Kind of disheartening, but I guess that's one of those weird things that happens in some seasons sometimes. Blue Jackets starting the overtime on a 4-on-3 power play, and they get a deflection goal on that power play from Boone Jenner off of Boquist's shot. And not only did they screw up their tank with this win, but they did suffer a lot of injuries doing so. Olivier, Goodbranson, and Blankenberg all leaving during the game for one reason or another. Just a bad luck game for the Blue Jackets all around in terms of that. They won the game, and they made the Islanders fans melt down. That is one of the upsides of this, is watching fan bases of competitive teams just start to absolutely lose it when they start losing against the Blue Jackets. That's always fun. But the Blue Jackets got back to their tanking ways. They got back on track on the road against the Canadiens, losing 8-2, really hammering it home that they're really, they're committed to doing this. Nick Blankenberg returning to the lineup in this one. However, he's now week to week with an ankle, so maybe he was playing on that injury and they just didn't look at it that closely. I'm not sure. Jake Christensen called up. It was Elvis Merzlikins returning against Shane Montembeault in net. This was pretty much a shellacking after kind of a competitive first period, but second period onward, it was all Montreal. Harvey Pinard had a hat trick in the second period alone. To be quite honest, I haven't really heard of the guy before that. Just Harvey Pinard scoring a hat trick against the Blue Jackets. That kind of seems par for the course. At least Kirill Marchenko did score. I always like seeing Kirill Marchenko getting a goal. And the tank got moving again. That is one of the positives, is that, they're not... They could be third worst in the league instead of just second worst now. They could be even in more danger of falling further back down in the draft. Elvis Merzlikins also suffering an injury in this game. Pretty bad way to come back to allow 6 goals and then get hurt. I say allow 6 goals as if they were all his fault. This team is clearly, they were bad defensively beforehand, and now they're suffering 2 more defensive injuries. Not great. The injuries suffered the lineup against the Islanders, and just, being a bad team, catching up to them in this one. John Gillies has been called up from Cleveland to counteract Elvis being injured. He was acquired in the Jake Voracek trade to the Coyotes, if I'm remembering correctly. And yeah, that's pretty much how the week has gone for the Blue Jackets. A couple of surprising wins, some high-scoring games in overtime, but the winnings, they're kind of like just quick fixes. They're kind of like you need to fulfill a dopamine rush that you're lacking, so you go to the it's a quick fix. It's fun in the moment, but for your long-term future, probably going to be detrimental in the long run. But there's still time for the Jackets to fall back down to last and secure that top 3 pick. But San Jose, the tank that they're on, seems like it might be a bit of a tall task. So thank you all for watching this video. If you made it this far, I will see you at the next one.